Welcome to this training. This is episode 2 in this little mini series that will help you to win in all parts of life. So that is business, mind, body, family, and relationship. For this training, it's recommended that you get comfortable, maybe have it on in the background, maybe make yourself a little brew. I have a pint of chamomile tea because I had my coffee today already. And in episode 1, we talked about the Apex Dad ecosystem. So this is when we're winning at work, but losing, for want of a better word, at home. And all the things that go into trying to be a high performance dad. Today, we're going to talk about the Apex Dad architecture. So every week, what we can do to have a structural reset to get the most out of that week. Now, I'm going to break it down very simply and give you practical action points that you can take and you can apply today. Shall we begin? Let's do this. Okay, so most high performance dads don't live in chaos. Misalignment, not chaos. There's an important distinction there. Because if we start using words like chaos, and I've been guilty of that too, our words become our thoughts and our thoughts become our reality. So high-performing dads live in misalignment, not chaos. Monday is, I'll handle it this week. Wednesday is a calendar packed with inbox exploding and your gym sessions being missed. Friday, you've crushed your work, but you were absent at home. And Sunday night comes, and you've got low-grade anxiety. Some may call that the fear. If it's still like an old scoop or two. And a quiet sense of something's leaking. You don't have a discipline problem. You have a structural problem. And structure can be redesigned. Hurrah! So this is a positive thing. So what if your week was architected and not just survived? Imagine this instead. You enter Monday with pre-decided priorities. Your energy is allocated, not spent randomly. Work, family, body, and relationship are synchronized. Sunday night feels controlled and not chaotic. That word again. So this isn't about motivation. Obviously, you're here. So to be very clear on this, and I say this a lot, if you're watching this video, if you've made it, 4 minutes in, nearly, you are motivated. So you're already the 1% that want to take that action. How do we get to the 0.01%? This is how. So again, it's not about motivation. It's about installing a system that prevents bleed between the domains of home and work, aka the first and second space. The Apex Dad weekly architecture, the absolute important first step, that wasn't very good English, is a Sunday command session. So a 20-minute Sunday command session that is not planning, it's architecture. This is where you audit your performance, you recalibrate across the 5 pillars that I mentioned, family, relationship, mind, body, and business. You design your week intentionally and you install constraints that prevent failure. This is one session, 7 days of leverage. Why this works when most systems fail. And I've written this twice. Systems beat willpower. I'll say it again. Systems beat willpower. Willpower, unfortunately, is fleeting. So most men rely on willpower, to-do lists, or motivational spikes. But psychology is very, very clear. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And James Clear said that in Atomic Habits. High performers don't need more ambition, because that's why you're here and you've achieved so much in your life already. They need tighter systems. Let's go through the 4 stages of the Apex weekly architecture. So number 1 is performance debrief. A clear, honest review of how you actually showed up last week. Number 2 is pillar calibration. I always struggle with that word. A quick scan of the 5 areas of your life that I mentioned before to see what's strong and what's slipping. Number 3 is keystone design, choosing the one meaningful outcome per key area that will move the week forward. And finally, number 4, constraint installation, locking time and boundaries into your calendar so the plan survives pressure. Each stage prevents a different type of structural failure and allow 5 minutes per stage. So that's 20 minutes in total. And just to be very clear, 20 minutes may sound like a lot, but when you do it once and you realize what you get from it, you understand it's such a small investment for a big return. So let's dive into these 4 stages. And I'm going to go in a good bit of practical detail because it's so important that we don't get caught up in our emotions and that we actually are pragmatic with our approach. And this the more information you have, the quicker you'll be able to do this. Because I'm the type of person, I feel like if there are quicker ways to get something done, I'll take them. You know, it's time is of the essence, especially when at home and work life. So stage 1, the performance debrief, which may take 5 minutes. I say. The first time you do it, you find your feet, but listen carefully to this, and this will really help you to do this efficiently. Now, this is not journaling. This is a cold assessment. And on that, I know people preach about journaling. I used to be a yoga teacher, meditation teacher. I mean, that was my full-time job. I still do parts of that. And journaling was big. But the problem with journaling is we get too emotionally invested. It doesn't matter how you feel about things. What matters is the action taken. That's the uncomfortable truth. And most journaling becomes emotional processing without actual performance correction. So it feels productive, it feels reflective, but it rarely creates structural change. Journaling often asks, how do I feel? A performance debrief asks, what standard did I meet or violate? One's therapeutic, the other is corrective. High-performing fathers don't need more emotional narration. They need tighter feedback loops. That's the difference. So in our cold assessment, not a journal, we ask 4 questions. Question number 1, where did I dominate last week? So for example, you have a high stakes negotiation on Monday, and instead of reacting emotionally, you slowed the pace, you controlled the frame, and you closed on your terms. So let's actually leave that there because I go deeper into this in our actual course. In terms of the psychology and the body language in negotiation situations, because everything is a negotiation. You know, we're always selling to each other in some way. But domination is not ego. It's identifying repeatable behaviors. The question beneath the question is, what did I do there that I can deliberately repeat? Question number 2 is, where did I drift? For example, you committed to 3 early workouts. You hit 1. Not because of crisis, but because you scrolled at night and woke up late. Drift is subtle, not explosive. That's why we don't notice it. It's like the metaphor of the frog boiling very, very slowly. We don't notice it until it's too late. Drift compounds faster than failure. And this is why we have to really keep on top of it. Number 3, the third question, where did pressure leak into other domains? For example, you have a rough board call, 4:30 p.m. on a Wednesday, and you walk through the door of your home still mentally arguing. So at dinner, you're physically there, but cognitively you're absent. That's cross-domain bleed. Work pressure leaked into family pillar. So one pillar leaked into the other. And this is structural, not emotional, because we do this subconsciously. And if you don't spot it weekly, it becomes normalized. And often, and I'm guilty of this, often I'll bring my work into the family home at dinner table, and then I'll end up being short with my wife or my kids and then apologizing. But that's a bad habit to think, oh, I can always just apologize afterwards, because the damage is already done. Okay, and the fourth and final question, and this is the hardest one, is what behavior was beneath my standard? For example, you raised your voice Thursday evening. That's a a fancy way of saying you shouted. You were not abusive, you weren't dramatic, you were just sharper and shorter than necessary. This is below your standard, and the goal isn't guilt, it's alignment. If you claim high standards, they must apply at home, not just at work and in the boardroom. Here's why this works. You're identifying repeatable behaviors. Because this isn't self-expression, this is identity calibration. Yay, nailed that word. You're asking, did I behave like the man I say I am? The question upgrades performance across every pillar. And unlike journaling, it forces pattern recognition, behavioral correction, and structural adjustment. Emotion may appear, because we're human, but performance is the target. You're not reviewing tasks, you're reviewing your identity, which can be an uncomfortable thing to do. And this is why you're here, because with discomfort comes growth. So here's an example of a debrief in short. Okay, think of this as a bit of a recap. So a win. Okay, I closed the major deal and I stayed calm under pressure. A drift, I missed 2 workouts of the 3. A leak, I checked my Slack or whatever messaging app you use during family dinner or bedtime routine. And a below standard might be I was short-tempered in the evening. So it's observation, it's not emotion. We're looking for patterns over events. Okay, so stage 1, we went over the performance debrief. Now, stage 2, we're going to go over our 5-pillar collaboration. So we scan across the ecosystem. The body, energy, training, sleep. The mind, focus, stress, emotional control. Our relationship, connection with our partner, that is. Our family, which is presence and engagement with the kids. And our business, strategic versus reactive execution. Maybe I should have had a second coffee. Okay, and across each pillar, we're going to rate it as a percentage, as you can see above. Now, this is where we use the ABT from episode 1 in action. So A is your current state, an honest score of where you are right now, not where you think you should be. And then B is your desired state. So that is the level you expect for yourself as a high-performing father. And finally, time, the reallocation required. So where specifically will you allocate or protect this time to close the gap between A and B? Now, evening drift is dangerous. So what you might want to do when you're doing this assessment, the debrief, I've put this little image here because I do this on my phone. But sometimes I'm guilty of distraction. So what you can do is use a physical book, something you've bought specifically for this, that you know you're going to reuse and is only used for that one thing. So just if you find that you're easily distracted, which I'm getting better at, then use an actual pen and paper. Now, second, we have across the 5 pillars. So the first pillar is our body. Now, this is kind of a contentious issue. People talk about, oh, you got to look after the mind before you look after the body. I don't believe that. I think the body is the most important pillar because we don't want to put ourselves in discomfort. Our brain has evolved to try to be as comfortable as possible throughout all of human history. But now we live in a time that's so unique, and we're blessed to be here, where we have so much comfort, but we have too much. So we have to trick our mind and override our need, our desire to be comfortable by taking physical action. And that's why the body comes first. So for the body, energy, training, sleep. That's what the main subcategories we're looking at. Ask yourself, did I train 3 times last week? Did I get, spelling error there. Did I get to bed before 10 p.m.? No, we try and get to bed before 9 p.m., which is kind of a bit boring, I know. Did I hit my daily protein target, which is 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight? And let me give you an example here. So you trained twice last week instead of 3 times. On average, you slept 5 hours, which isn't enough. And I appreciate, let me just say, if you've got really young kids like I have, last night I went between the upper bunk of our oldest child and the other room of our youngest child, his cot, lying next to the cot. So that was my night, just going back and forth. Yeah. So I slept sometimes. But if you're lucky enough that your kids are at a stage now where they're sleeping pretty consistently, then you want to be tracking how many hours you're getting. And I still do track. I just don't like to look sometimes. So you only train twice. Your sleep averaged 5 hours, which is not enough. Energy dip daily at 3 p.m. So you started doom scrolling, checking social media, and that includes LinkedIn. This would be a score 6 out of 10. Now we apply the ABT. So actual was 6. Becoming was 8. So I'm looking to up it by 2. And then the time, where will I deliberately allocate time to improve this? Right. And by the way, this 6, 8, and I mentioned percentage earlier, I think of it as 60% or 80%, if you want to do that way. So either percentage or out of 10. The practical adjustment could be here. Block 3 6 a.m. sessions before the week starts. So physically put them in the diary. And to be very clear, I say this all the time, but some people are a bit shocked by it, have a eureka moment. But I guess to me now it's obvious, but when I first heard it, it wasn't obvious to me. It's new at some stage to all of us. But you put your kids' ballet, football, swimming, gymnastics in the diary. Same way you put your meetings in the diary, put your meeting with yourself, which is your gym session, in the diary. And if you have a shared calendar like I do with my wife, you both see it. I go to the gym at 6 a.m. 3 times a week. That's what I do. It's in the diary. So it's blocked off, right? Set 9 p.m. as device cutoff. That's the 10 p.m. bedtime. So you want to allow yourself an hour to downregulate. Add 20-minute walk after lunch. So you don't try harder, you allocate time differently. So this means once you've eaten, you stand up, it's automatic, and you start walking. And you can set time on your watch to be like, okay, I'm going to just walk for 20 minutes, any direction. Next, mind. Constraints improve mental performance because our mind is scattered a lot of the time. I mean, we have evolved as hunter-gatherers. We have evolved to seek out novelty and to be aware of anything changing in our environment. Therefore, we have to, in order to focus, add constraints. Blinkers, if you will. Focus, stress, and emotional control. These are the key subcategories here. So ask yourself, did I react or did I respond? Was I distracted? Did work pressure spill over? And did I protect deep work? So for example, you checked Slack at dinner. You had 6, hopefully not 9, 6+ hours on your phone for screen time, and 50% of those were social media apps. And you can actually check the breakdown on your phone. How much time did you spend on each app? You were short with the missus when you got home over something really small, and you allowed low cognitive tasks like appraisal meetings, I think they're low cognitive, into your mornings. So this score might be 5 out of 10, and you want to get to an 8 out of 10. So the time here is, where must time boundaries be installed? For example, practical adjustment, 90-minute deep work is blocked off daily, ideally the morning. So I find I'm most creative, this is the morning time now, to do more cognitively challenging tasks. So I blocked this off. I've sent my missus a text just now saying I'm about to be recording in the garden room. Only disturb me if it's urgent. Right? Because I feel fresh, and I know in the afternoon this will be more challenging to do, and that's why I do admin in the afternoon. Slack cutoff is at 5:30 p.m. and you have a 10-minute decompression walk before entering the home. So especially if you drive home, or you take public transport home, or you work from home, once the day is done, start walking. 10-minute walk. Again, set the timer. Make sure you breathe. You're not looking at your phone. You're not listening to anything productive like a podcast, or you feel free to listen to music if it helps you to uplift you. But something that says, right, I'm going to focus on walking, breathing, and creating that ritual of a divide between my work and my family time. So mental performance improves when reaction windows shrink, and this requires time constraints. So you'll find if you have that 10-minute walk, when you get through the door, you will be so much more patient, so much more emotionally controlled than if you didn't. So next we have relationship. The unbreakable ritual. Connection with the partner, with your partner. Ask yourself, did we have device-free time? Did I initiate connection? Did I lead emotional tone? In other words, a device is referring to your phone or your laptop or your tablet. And did I initiate emotional connection? Now, it's really important sometimes to swallow our pride. And even if we're in the bad books with the missus, or we feel like we're in the right and they're in the wrong, you have to get over that and swallow your pride, put your arm out, give her a hug, touch her shoulder, speak to her, ask her how her day was, and just take the higher ground and lead with emotional tone. So you're not trying to, you need to obviously read her to see how her day has been, and try to match that tone. And if you can, even slightly uplift it. So example could be no arguments, but no intentional connection either. So for example, you say like, oh, okay, we didn't have an argument, that's great, but did you actually try to connect? Right? It's not enough just not to have an argument. The standards are too low. So that's a 4 out of 10. And you might be looking to get an 8 to an 8 out of 10. So where will connection be scheduled? Right? It doesn't sound very sexy, very romantic, but this is married life with kids. So one practical adjustment could be the 30-minute device-free conversation. So you set up your environment. Now, to be very clear, let me show you this image actually. This might help. See the far right, you have the couple just staring at the TV, right, mindlessly. Then you have the one in the middle where they're standing up, and this can encourage more, if you're on bad terms, an argument, right? What you want to do is sit down into a relaxed environment, maybe some food if possible. Maybe a ritual is getting a takeaway, for example, on a Friday, not too much. And when you're sitting, now this picture has people facing each other, But what you can do as well, that's fine when you're eating food. But if you're not eating, what I'd recommend is to sit perpendicular. So me and my missus have an L-shaped couch. And therefore, when I sit on the L part of the couch, the long part, what do they call it in France? Chilon? Whatever, the L bit. I turn, so I'm not facing, we're not shoulder to shoulder, we're at a right angle, I'm at a right angle to her. And that, because sometimes sitting directly opposite someone, unless you're eating, can feel like a board meeting, and the table is a barrier. Whereas if you're sitting on armchairs or ideally a sofa, and you're at a perpendicular angle, it makes it less confrontational, but also not too distant physically. Anyway. Friday evening, as I mentioned, is always a certain thing. So it might be you have a curry together, or any whatever your takeaway choice is. We love a curry, or you watch a movie together, or you make pizza together. Right now, some of these are better than others, but like if you're the type of couple that are not going to make a pizza together, then don't force that. Or if you're watching a movie or a film for the sake of it, and neither you enjoy it, don't do that either. Do what's you both like. You may have to compromise a little bit. You might end up having to watch a rom-com, but it's the same thing every single Friday. Right? You have that ritual, and midweek you ask one meaningful question. So simply, how are you? Right? It's an open question. It's not leading. And you can give context, like if the missus thinks that's a bit weird, why would you be asking me that? You don't normally ask that. You can say, look, I've been doing this course and I've been realizing that I really want to make the most of our lives together. And one of it sounds a bit cheesy, but is to check in with your missus and simply ask them how they are. So, and if you're a bit more emotional like I am, you might say, I really care about you, the best thing to happen in my life. So I want to look after you and make sure I'm understanding you. And you don't have to get too cheesy with it, but whatever suits your tone. And it's going to be awkward at the start. Anything, like I said, discomfort equals growth. So connection doesn't improve by just hoping. It improves when time is protected. So make sure you do your Friday ritual, have your 30-minute conversation without a device, and midweek check-in. And then we have your family, perimeter secured. So presence and engagement are the key subcategories here. We ask, did I play or did I simply supervise my children? Did I rush bedtime or was I cognitively present? For example, you were at home, but mentally you're reviewing your emails. That would be a 6 out of 10. Maybe you're looking to get to 9 out of 10. So you ask yourself, where must distraction, be removed? Now, here's some practical adjustments you can make. 20 minutes floor time. The phone is outside of the play area. Ideally, even outside the room. Now, you may think, why the floor? Whenever you're trying to connect with someone, you go to their level, physically and emotionally. This is why kids, they like to play on the floor. So instead of just standing over them, half checking your phone, and be like, oh yeah, that's good Lego, or oh, that painting looks good that you did at school, you actually get down to their level. Right, and I'm the kind of dad where my missus does all the play stuff, as in like, let's build this together and let's paint and stuff. I like to wrestle more, So that's my love language, as they say. So you do what suits you, but make sure you're physically on their level. Okay, that's why it's important to get yourself into a good nick as well, because you can actually get up and down off the floor without breaking something. I'm not talking about Lego. So. Floor time, 20 minutes in the evening. Bedtime routine is locked in. You don't skip pages when you're reading bedtime stories. Now, saying that, I recommend don't pick Dr. Seuss, is that the one? Where they have like a lot of writing in them. And sometimes they have those pages where it's like a dark background and dark text as well. What were they thinking? So it's the old books. So pick a book that is easy enough to read and doesn't take too long, and that you're not going to skip pages. No laptop reopening after bedtime. Maybe that's 7 p.m. or so. And set expectations with your kids and with your clients. Okay, so to dive into this, you might say, look, I run my own business, or I've got employees, or I've got team or board members to answer to, and they expect me to be on call all the time. Well, if it's possible, and you don't know unless you try, set the expectations to say, look, the evening is family time. I dedicate that to my family. So when you do get back to them, if you receive an email in the evening, you say, thanks for your email. I was with the family last night, so appreciate you, getting in touch or bringing this issue, and this is my response. Don't say, sorry for the delay. Sorry for my late reply. The same way when you go to a meeting, if you're a couple of minutes late, which can happen, you never say, sorry for being late. You always say, thank you for waiting for me. Sets the tone. You be appreciative instead of apologetic. Because when you apologize, it lowers your status. Anyway, it also pisses the other person off because they're like, don't say sorry, just don't do it again. That's what they're thinking anyway. So this also applies to days, not just times of the day. For example, maybe like I don't work on the weekends. That's family time. And unless there's an absolute emergency. So if that's not possible for you, you might say, I don't work on a Sunday. That's family time. And then you get back to them on the Monday. And if you're worried about losing or business slowing down, that's natural, right? But others will respect you for this. And again, you don't know until you try it. Okay. Patience isn't emotional, right? Or sorry, presence isn't emotional. It's temporal. And what gets time gets your attention. Business. So you make sure that you're strategic, and busy is not strategic. Ask yourself, did I work on the thing that actually grew my business? Or did I just reply to emails? Did I protect time to think and to plan? For example, inbox is at 0 every evening, but the new offer you said you'd make to that new hire, did it happen? Has it still not started? Or did you handle 5 small problems but didn't spend 60 minutes on the one project that would move revenue? Busy isn't the same as productive. So this might be a score 7 out of 10, and you're looking to get to a 9. So the time question is, where will strategy time be protected? And here's some practical adjustments. You block out 2 90-minute sessions in your calendar called strategy do not book, and use that time to work on only your highest impact project. For example, building the new offer, mapping new next quarter's plan, or writing the proposal that actually grows revenue. Another practical adjustment could be you cancel one meeting this week that doesn't require you. If you're just there to stay in the loop, ask for notes instead. And a final practical adjustment here could be hand off one admin task you're still doing out of habit. For example, diary scheduling, basic client follow-ups, or formatting documents. So your time is spent on decisions, not paperwork. Busy is not strategic. Time allocation reveals your priorities. So give me a little sip of my chamomile tea. Redesign your calendar, as I mentioned at the start. For each pillar, have your current score, your desired score, and where time must be allocated to close this gap. You are not fixing your personality, You are redesigning your calendar. This is what you're watching for, patterns. If the body drops, the mind drops. If the business rises but relationship falls, time is being siphoned. If everything scores 6 to 7, you're drifting evenly. This is ecosystem management. So in other words, you need to see what pillars are affecting other pillars. Now, stage 3 of the 4 stages is your keystone outcome. So again, this should take about 5 minutes. So forget the big 3, right? So most people will make big long lists and they'll have 10 work tasks, 5 home tasks, and a few fitness goals or health goals. Sorry. Not very professional there. Bit of wind. By Wednesday, it's chaos. Instead, you choose keystone outcomes, not tasks, outcomes. An outcome changes the direction of the week. A task just fills time. Have I been talking for almost 40 minutes? I have, blimey. And you're still with me. You're motivated. You're in the right place. Okay, so we want to find the signal. It's one result that if it happens, it makes the week count. You choose one for each major area. That's business, family, and body. We'll just use those 3 examples. Okay, so you're not using like tons. It's just one for each of those pillars. Let's just go through 3 for now. Business keystone. So not inbox clearing, not attending a meeting, not working hard, because that's subjective. Those are maintenance. A keystone outcome moves something forward. So a real example would be you send the proposal that could close the biggest deal this quarter, or you finalize pricing on the new offer, or you have a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. If it gets done, the week has momentum. If it doesn't, you were busy, but you didn't move forward. So again, for example, one deal that moves the needle. That's what we want to focus on. That's a good keystone outcome for business. Family keystone. You're not saying, oh, I'm just going to be around more, or I'll try to be more patient. That's too vague. Pick something specific and measurable. Real example, take your partner out on Friday. No phones. And again, if that's unusual, give her context. Look, I've been looking into this. Maybe you explain it in a way that makes sense to her, a way for our relationship to blossom and to go to the next level, or something, whatever her language is, however she likes to talk. And let's leave our phones at home when we go out today or tonight. Or you have one 30-minute uninterrupted game or walk with your child. So again, leave the phone at home or leave it out of the room. Sit down and plan the upcoming holiday together. So me and my missus will go away and the family, kids, every January. We've already booked for next January coming that is. Because especially when the weather's crap, you want something to look forward to. So just doing that task together was exciting. I planned it. I was like, let's do this because we were having a bit of a Barney. So it's a way to kind of get us back on track. Even though nothing actually happened, didn't spend any money, didn't go anywhere. But it's planning the future together, something exciting to look forward to. So if this happens, connection improves. If it doesn't, the week's just going to drift. A body keystone. This is a big one that a lot of people struggle with. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to be healthier. It's too broad. You choose something that's clear. So a real example can be, I'm going to train 6 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Or I'm going to hit 8,000 steps. Specific. I'm going to get in bed by 10 p.m. 4 nights this week. Maybe Friday night you go a bit wild. If you do it, energy improves. If you don't, nothing happens. Nothing changes. So when you have these cornerstone outcomes, you have to have a filter question. Before locking them in, ask if these three things happen, was it a solid week? If the answer is yes, they stay. If the answer is no, they're probably just fillers. And why this works. You remove noise. Instead of reacting to 25 small things, you protect time for 3 meaningful ones. You still handle daily responsibilities, that's autopilot, but your attention is anchored to what actually moves things forward. That's the difference between busy and making progress. So our final stage of the 4 stages is constraint installation. And this is what I talked about the blinkers before. This is where most fellas fall down. They make a plan on Sunday, but they don't change the environment that the plan has to survive in. So when pressure hits, the plan disappears. Let me give you a quick example. Leave your phone outside the bedroom. Put it downstairs when you go to bed. You have an actual phone dock, which I'll go into in a second, and you put the phone dock there. It's fixed in one position of the house, away from the bedroom. So planning's easy, but boundaries are hard. Anyone can write down, I'm going to finish work at 5:30. I'm going to train 3 times a week. I'm going to be present at home. But if nothing physically changes in your schedule or environment, you're relying on willpower. And willpower fades the moment you're tired, stressed, or behind. Constraints fix that. A constraint is a rule that makes the right behavior easier and the wrong behavior harder. So example 1, 5:30 p.m., stand up every time. Without a constraint, it's 5:25 p.m. One more email, one more Slack message, and then it drifts till 6:15. That should be 5:35 p.m. And with a constraint, you set a recurring calendar block, at 5:20 called shutdown. So it pops up and it says at 5:20, close inbox, write tomorrow's top task, physically shut the laptop. At 5:30, stand up every time. The decision isn't made daily, it's made once on a Sunday. Example 2, which I mentioned earlier, dock the phone outside the bedroom. Without a constraint, you scroll for 5 minutes. This turns into 40 minutes. Sleep drops, morning training misses, and because how you end the day is going to affect how you start the next day. With this constraint, you just buy 15 quid charging dock. It lives in the kitchen. Phone never enters the bedroom. There's no debate at night, no argument with yourself. The environment makes the decision. And a third example is time is blocked off for training and it's immovable. Without a constraint, a meeting request comes in at 6 a.m. You think, I'll train tomorrow. And with a constraint, you block off, right, 6 to 7, that's training. Do not book anything. Or say if you do half an hour, 6 to 6:30. You auto-decline rules on your calendar. Okay, so that's blocked off, nothing can be booked in its place. And if something truly urgent appears, you consciously move the workout. Not silently delete it. Training becomes an appointment, not a hope. And the final example is the 20% calendar margin. So without a margin, every hour is booked, right? Which looks great on the calendar. Oh, look how busy I am. There's no gaps. But one delay throws off the day. And delays will happen. You can't rely on everyone to be as punctual as you are. So stress builds and then you take that stress home. With a margin, you leave open blocks daily. There's buffers between meetings, space for spillover. Now when something overruns, the system absorbs it. You don't. So for example, meetings, if you tend to do half an hour meetings, they're 20 minutes or 25 minutes. Or hour meetings, they're 50 minutes. So you have that buffer. Why rigid systems break? If you plan every minute of the day perfectly, one unexpected call ruins the day. Then frustration builds, then you abandon the plan. Rigid plans demand ideal conditions. Life doesn't offer ideal conditions, especially with kids. why constrained systems work. Okay, this is how the week operates. It installs clear stop times, protected blocks, device boundaries, and built-in margins. So when stress increases, behavior stays steady. You're not trying to be disciplined in the moment. You're already deciding how the moment's going to work. So that's the difference. Planning says, I hope this week goes well. Constraints say, this is how the week operates. So let's make sure that we eliminate structural contradictions. Example, you commit to 6 a.m. training. You schedule a 7 a.m. international call, and that's not lack of discipline, that's poor architecture. So fix that on Sunday, not Wednesday when you're under stress. Reschedule the call. Move the workout or lower the commitment. Decide proactively. So this is what your calendar should reflect. Right? It doesn't reflect business, it reflects standards. So Monday, 6 a.m., you've got training, non-negotiable. Start the week as you mean to carry on. Monday, 5:30 p.m., you've got your first, second space reset. Like the walking with 10-minute walk. Tuesday, 8 p.m. or any midweek, you check in with the partner. And then Friday, you've got your family ritual or your relationship ritual. If it isn't scheduled, it's aspirational. And aspiration doesn't survive pressure. So here's 3 structural errors to avoid. Number 1, designing for perfection. So leave that 20% margin. Number 2, ignoring energy cycles. Deep work happens in the morning or whenever you're most creative, your highest cognitive peak. And admin happens with low energy troughs. Right? Biology is always going to trump ambition. And finally, treating family as residual time. Family should get first placement, not leftovers. What you place first wins. When you run the architecture, it's every Sunday evening. And after the house settles, you sit down, phone on silent, if you're using your phone. 20 minutes, no multitasking. This is not optional if you want structural dominance over your week. So here is a 4-week structural reset challenge. Run this protocol for 4 consecutive weeks. Track these shifts. Monday morning psychological state. Action versus reaction ratio. Emotional carryover into your home life, and stability across the 5 pillars. Within 4 weeks, you'll notice less cognitive stress, less cross-domain bleed, more presence, and more controlled intensity. Here's a quick recap to finish. 1, performance debrief. 2, 5-pillar collaboration. 3, keystone outcome design. And 4, constraint installation. The investment is only 20 minutes, and the return is structural control over time, energy, and attention. Now, next in this training, episode 3, is you've already architected your week, but there's still one dangerous structural gap, and that is the space between work and home mode. The unguarded transition is where most fellas leak stress into family life. And we call this the first, second space reset. So this is a short decompression protocol that prevents that cross-domain bleed and restores presence before you walk through the front door.